Hi everyone, my name is Emma Masters and I'm really excited today to take you through this presentation called The Experience Age, Personalising the Member Journey. It's a topic I'm really passionate about. It combines two of the worlds that I work in very closely, and I think it's a really, really important topic to share with the fitness industry and in fact beyond the fitness industry in the current climate and the way that we're moving forward into the next phase of what the industry might look like. So I'm going to crack straight in because I know that I haven't got all the time in the world to chat to you today, and I do love to chat, especially on topics that I'm particularly passionate about. So I'm going to just dive straight in. So I want to start with where we're at today, the evolution of the fitness industry in brief, because we're in now what I like to call the smashed avo generation. And there's a reason for that, and I'm going to explain why. The reason for that is over the last decade or so, our beliefs, values, wants, and needs have really, really shifted. We've gone from what was the information age, the technology age, where internet was introduced, and we started to build big box gyms that gave us lots of good customer service and bells and whistles, and we were able to access that due to all of this incoming of technology and information at our fingertips. But what happened with that was that over the years, over the time of having all of this information, almost too much, right? We were able to research, strip back what we really, really want, and we were able to redefine our values, wants, and needs and beliefs at even deeper level. And because of that, our expectation of what we deserve or what we want got higher and very specific. And therefore, what we started to see is this rise of people wanting more than just product alone, but wanting genuine experience. So the guys listening today to this seminar, I want you just to have a think about for a second. I'm sorry if you're in a position where you can't go out to a cafe right now and I'm rubbing some salt in a wound, but think back to a time, or if you can currently, go out for breakfast and have your favorite beautiful smashed avocado with eggs that have that perfect egg moment as you cut into it, and think about that experience as a whole. And then consider how much you spend on said experience. Now, I'm willing to say, because I'm definitely a culprit of this, that you're probably willing to spend upwards of $25, especially if we throw in a beautiful coffee, maybe with some coffee latte art on top. Sometimes we're spending surplus of $30, right? Especially if we get a juice or a wheatgrass shot. And we're willing to spend that money, that $30, $40 on a breakfast, even though we know that we could buy some bread from the supermarket, an avocado, a couple of eggs, and really the cost of that breakfast would be maybe $5, $6. And the question I'm putting to you is why? Why are we willing to spend surplus of $30, 2, 3, 4 times the amount that we know it actually is worth, the eggs and avocado alone is worth? Why are we willing to spend more on that? And genuinely, the response I get is the word that I'm looking for, which is experience. It's the total experience of going out to get that avocado on toast. And if we break that down even further, get into the nitty gritty of that, we can start to look at things like, well, it's the customer service. It's the fact that I can go with my friends and the community. It's the fact that I don't have to clean the dishes. It's the convenience. It's the beautiful extras that I get on my plate that I probably wouldn't do myself. It's the facilities that I'm in, the beautiful decor, the amazing bathroom facilities, the music that they play, the live music, whatever it is, the list goes on, right? So we're not really just paying for the avocado on toast. We're paying for the total end-to-end journey of leaving the house, arriving, spending time with people that you care about, all the way through to that survey, the bill at the end, and you leaving the facility. And so I want you to keep that in mind today as I talk about experience, because I break down my 5 pillars of what makes an incredible facility experience, whether that's a restaurant, a shop, or most specifically in the fitness industry. So really keep that whole idea of this being now a smashed avo generation in the forefront of your mind. Okay, so if we understand where we've come from and that we're currently in this smashed avo generation, we're going to switch gears a little bit and call it the experience age, because I truly believe that's where we're at right now. We're no longer in the technology or information age. We're in what we call the experience age. And we've just established that that means we've got here because our generational beliefs, values, and wants have shifted into a space where our expectations are higher, and we're really looking for an overall end-to-end experience. There's statistics to back this. We found that 50% of people are happy to take a pay cut to work for a company that matches their values. That's really huge when we've come from an age where all we wanted to do is work in, cubicles and get the work done on the computer to be able to support our family, provide for our family. We're now moving into a space where actually we'd rather make less money, but work with someone that we really truly feel meets our inner core values. That's huge, right? We also value freedom, hugely value freedom. Owning things now equals a lack of freedom. So we're really seeing this shift in businesses. Think Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, three of the biggest companies in the world, and they don't actually own any product. They're contributing to this want for freedom within our biology, within our bodies. And so therefore we have to start also thinking about how can we provide freedom to our customers when it comes to aligning with their values also. And happiness. Happiness is now hugely important. It's where we've definitely shifted to. More than 3/4 of millennials would prefer to spend money on an experience over a product. And so therefore, understanding where those values have shifted to, we can truly understand why we're sat in this experience age right now. Service is not enough anymore. And so we have to see an evolution of fitness experience. Because if we're not going to do it as a fitness industry, we're going to be left behind, because all of our big companies all of our big facilities are moving towards this era. So if we're not, we're going to be just left in the dirt, and so will our businesses. So what do those value shifts mean, and how have we seen that already affecting the industry? Well, number one, the growth of the boutique scene. We're now seeing this a lot in Australia, but if we have a look at the US, the United Kingdom, other parts of the world, this has been growing over the last 10 years. Really specific boutiques that offer massive value for money, even though they are more expensive, but they have an experiential feel to them, right? It's not just about the cycle class as we see here, it's about everything else that encompasses it. And through that, because we're creating these very unique experiences with very specific products, we're creating a kind of a cult-like community, which is contributing to that happiness, to that feeling of belonging to our participants. And then that freedom value, well, that looks at things like packages over memberships. Now people can buy a 5-pack, a 10-pack, a 15-pack to multiple boutique spaces and be going to whichever one they feel like at whatever time. They're not locked into a contract. They're not locked into a 12-month or a even month-by-month rolling membership where they feel like can only go to that one gym. They can actually spread their wings and have a little taster of everything. And so understanding this, we're already starting to think, okay, well, is my facility being left behind here? And am I providing these really key factors to my members, or are they going to go elsewhere to get these feelings of happiness, of freedom, of overall community feel over experience? So what is the future? If we understand that's where the industry is right now, where we've come from, we now have to understand what is the future. And the future is taking an experience, but then also making it uber personalized to the unique individual. We're already seeing this in tons of industries where they're putting personalization at the top of their priorities when it comes to growth for the company. We must be thinking about that now in the fitness industry too. Because what's important to know is we can create an amazing experience, but what one person's amazing experience is another person's nightmare. And I'm sure we can all think about that, right? A time where we've gone to a facility, a business, a restaurant, a nightclub, you name it, think of it. And somewhere we've gone, we've absolutely adored, and then some other place we can go and it's an absolute nightmare. It makes our skin crawl, just doesn't fit right with us. And so we have to start considering how are we going to create these unique experiences that are good for the people, our members, to keep them coming back for more. We have to meet people on a biological level, and we're going to go into this in a lot deeper in just a moment. But what does that mean? That means we have to actually interact with them in a space that means that they're going to get everything they need, not just at a face value, not just from their values and wants, but from a deep biological level. And it's actually possible now. We've got technology, we've got resources to reach people at a deep level that's not only going to feel good, but actually turn their good genes on. It's going to make them healthier, happier humans. So what's the system currently doing? Well, currently the system is saying, I'm going to build a facility that really resonates with me. I'm going to put the things that I want in it. I'm going to create programming the way I like it. And then we hope that people resonate with that, with the values of your business, and come. But if there was a way that we could reverse engineer that and say, okay, I want to create a facility for this demographic, for this type of person, do you not think that whole process would be a lot easier? And the answer is yes, right? So we are now going to learn today how we can reverse engineer that process and create an experience that guarantee that your members will not only like, but be good for their biology and their needs. So before we get to the biology, I want to break down my pillars of experience, because it's really important to understand that every human, due to my research over the last 5 years, will interact with these pillars differently, but they're all key elements to making an excellent customer journey experience for your members. When we look at these pillars, I really want you to consider not just the avocado and toast alone. So what do I mean by that? I mean, I don't want you just thinking about your product. It's very easy to get caught up on my product is, and that's where the entire experience lies. Instead, I want you to expand that thinking process slightly and start to think about the entire end-to-end member journey. So start to think about your sales funnels and marketing. Start to think about your first point of contact, either on the phone, by email, or when they first walk into your club. Start to think about your facility as a whole. So think about the bathrooms, the reception, if there's a cafe. Start thinking about your customer service and how your reception staff, your cleaning staff treat your members and what kind of experience they deliver. Yes, absolutely think about the product, because if the avocado on toast doesn't taste good, we're probably not going back, but just don't think of that as your only consideration. And then also, most importantly, I believe, is your club ecosystem. So once that member's gone through this amazing member journey, they've had an incredible time in your product, they've left your facility, what's keeping them coming back for more? What's keeping them buying those 5 packs, 10 packs, and staying within your facility? And that's what I like to call the ecosystem of your club. So let's get in. Let's look at our first pillar. And our first pillar is culture. Now, my tagline for this is I get to feel part of something, a community. And culture for me, and there's a reason I've put the CULT in caps, is because I think we can learn a lot from the word cult when it comes to culture. Now, I know there's a lot of negative feel around the word culture, but instead I want you to think about what could we learn from amazing cult-like behavior. If we look at cults, we can think about things like a common language. So speaking words that only the people in the cult understand. We can think about a uniform or a really obvious way to dress or look that identifies you being a part of that cult. We can look at obviously tribal behavior, so coming together for activity, for oneness, for coming together as a group. We can also look at things like a specific way of eating or behaving. We can also look at really strong leaders. So if we think about all of those things encompassing what we would look at as a cult, how can we then reflect that in our facility, in our boutique, in our gym to create culture? Great example of this is in the US, and that is SoulCycle. SoulCycle just provide this excellent culture type community. And if we reflect on those things that I just mentioned, we can look at a unique language. If any of you are familiar with SoulCycle, you'll know that they have really unique names for all of their rhythm cycle moves, things like tapbacks and jumps, and they'll call out different words, and everybody will mimic that movement. Yes, they have a really unique language. Their merchandise is on point. You know when somebody is wearing a SoulCycle tank or a SoulCycle hoodie. It's trendy, it's on point, and people want to wear the clothes so they feel a part of that same community. They have rock star instructors that are not just leading a class like a normal instructor. They're very pedestal. They're advertised like rock stars. They have their profiles online so that the members can get to know them, but in this kind of rock star, ultimate human type fashion where they feel like they're getting led by Beyonce. So you can see how SoulCycle specifically are nailing that pillar. Another great example, I'm sure it's coming to your mind right now, is CrossFit. A very unique language, very strong leaders, and then also, a really clear merchandise. And they even have a specific diet that you think of when you think of CrossFit. You think of Paleo Bro, right? So it's like all of these things encompass the CrossFit community. And if you're outside of it, you don't understand, the EMOMs and the AMRAPs and the WODs, and you don't really get what the paleo diet is and why is that guy wearing that tank. And all of a sudden, these things start to make you want to be a part of it. And that's what you want to create, this feeling of culture so that people get to feel a part of something. My second pillar is ease. Ease is all about eliminating stress through convenience. We talked about avocado on toast and how we really wanted to go and get the avocado on toast because it meant that we didn't have to do the dishes. It meant that we could show up and somebody gives us our food. And that's kind of ease at its most basic form. But how can we think of other ways to really contribute to the ease of our members? How can we eliminate stress? A great example of this is there's many studios doing this now. This one particular one is at a yoga studio called Humming Puppy, and it is a book your mat function when you book online. So not only are we being able to book online, which in itself is convenient because I don't have to call up the club or go in and register my place, but now they're taking it to another level where you can choose your specific mat in class so you know exactly the location of your position in the studio. It means that you can book next to your friend. And a really good one to note on this is it's not all about always your front row members wanting to make sure they're in the front row. This could be about your new members feeling safer because they get to be in the back row away from the eye of the instructor. So that particular example is a really great way of thinking, okay, how can I think outside the box to eliminate stress for my members? Next up is Luxe. I'm a little bit sad to share this picture because this is a picture of the Virgin Lounge. It's always my example of great luxe in a company outside of fitness, because I think it's important that we understand this doesn't just sit in the fitness industry alone. But Luxe is about providing a point of difference through luxury and status. And so it's important to note that Luxe can be created even on a budget. I don't believe that it has to be through really expensive product, through luxury materials. It can also be making our members feel luxurious, and that can be through excellent 5-star customer service. I think Luxe is something that we can keep pulling in from potentially before the experience age, more in the information age where we started to see the rise of 5-star customer service, and just know that we can't let it slip. It has to probably be even stronger now. Another great example of great customer service and Luxe is somewhere like Lululemon. You walk in, they know your name, they're popping it up on the changing room door, they're asking you if there's anything else you need, they're passing you clothes to try on and that think they will look fabulous on you. You feel very luxurious, you feel like you have status within their shop. That is what Luxe is about. So have a think for me now, maybe jot some ideas down on how you can start to incorporate these 3 pillars alone in your establishment. Maybe you already are. Maybe you are already providing some of this. But where else could you up your game in some of these pillars, looking at your entire member-to-member journey? Surprise. I think this is my favorite pillar. Surprise is about creating a feeling of delight, but through completely unexpected ways. And this is one that you absolutely don't need to spend money on. This is about surprising your members from the heart. So a great example of this in the fitness industry for me is Barry's Bootcamp, where they don't only just conveniently and probably under the pillar of ease provide your after workout shake right there for you as you leave class. It's there because you can pre-order online or you can pre-order in the club. It's got all your ingredients in it. It's amazing. Yum. That's probably ease. But the surprise part for me is when sometimes I look at my cup and it's got my name on it and it's got a beautiful quote or it tells me that I'm doing a great job. That moment didn't cost the club anything other than a little bit of time, but it goes such a long way into creating this feeling of like being special for your members. And those things are contributing to the experience tenfold. So have a think, where do you already create moments of surprise for your members and where could you create more? Immersion. Something that we can really look to the US boutiques for examples. This is where the industry has really shifted in terms of group exercise, because no longer is it good enough, delivering a class in a very stark room with white walls and a terrible sound system, maybe a microphone that doesn't work very well. Immersion is about enabling your members to disconnect from the craziness of the outside world and reconnect with themselves. Disconnect to reconnect. It's one of my favorite phrases because we're living now in this world where we're permanently attached to our phones, to our emails, to our boss, to our partner, to our sick dog. The world is stressful. We're in need of mindfulness. We're in need of downtime, of deregulating. But quite often we aren't making time for that, but we are making time for our 45-minute exercise session. And thank goodness, right? So how can we as facility owners, as instructors, as coaches, create immersion to enable our members to disconnect from all of that crazy and reconnect with what's important themselves? And I believe the way we do that is by stimulating our senses. And different businesses will probably hook on different senses that are more appropriate. I think in the fitness industry, our hearing and our sight and potentially even our touch and feel are the three that we can really hone in on. But then we can also look at scent. So a signature smell or scent throughout the club. Are we using scented candles in the bathrooms? Is there a way of creating beautiful scent in the change rooms or even the studio, depending on your format? Taste, can we give our members little treats occasionally or fruit after class to tantalize their taste buds? But I believe that things like your sense of sight, so using lights and a reflecting mood through different color lighting is a huge one. And then obviously epic sound immersion. So quality of sound, quality of studio, quality of sound. So looking at quality of your music system, your mics, are they in working order? Are you mixing music? Are you mindful about the music that your studio is using? Are you just sticking on random on Spotify playlist? Or are you hand picking your music to create a journey? And these are the things that we have to be considering now. Otherwise, other studios are just going to come and straight over you, because they're looking at each and every soundtrack. They're looking at taking your member on a sound journey and using that to amplify the intensity journey of the class. We're now mixing with DJ software tools. So we're not hearing like a horrible crossfade that's just a 10-second one on Spotify. We're now hearing really pleasant, almost DJ mixed transitions, so that we really are keeping our members exactly where we want them, in the present, in the studio, in the class. Whether that's a mind-body class or a high-intensity sweat fest, we want to be able to create that moment of presence for our members so that they start to disconnect from all of that stuff outside. And believe me, this one is one that we have to be considering how we can do more and more, because the crazy outside is only going to get worse and worse. So immersion, fifth pillar, really important. How are you already doing it, and how can you do more of it? So who's nailing this, guys? Who can I give you that's like absolutely nailing all 5 pillars, and therefore, for me, it's the thing that's contributing to their absolute success in the industry. If you're not familiar with either of these studios, and you can get to any of the cities that they're in, I highly recommend going and feeling it. It might not be your ideal experience, but it certainly is a lot of people's ideal experience. And in just a moment, we'll go into why that is. But for now, let's give you these examples. So example number 1 is, I've already mentioned it briefly, a yoga studio that will find studios in Melbourne and Sydney, and it's called Humming Puppy. Now, I want you to think back to those pillars. I want you to think about the entire end-to-end journey and start to piece these pieces together to see why they're doing such a great job and why they're hugely successful in what they're doing. So Humming Puppy has soft mood-enhancing lighting. It's beautiful. It's actually dark in what they call their shala, so their yoga studio. The walls are black. The light is almost completely blacked out. They have very particular strip lighting. You'll see in the picture there. So already, that's enhancing their immersion in sense of like lighting and sight. There's a floor hum that they have tuned to a certain frequency to enable members to connect to themselves more. So there's a frequency underneath the floorboards, a soft hum that's there the entire class. Like, if that is an epic immersion, I don't know what is. There's an amazing musical journey throughout the club, and they have a signature smell that you absolutely do, inhale as you enter. And as soon as you enter that studio, you just feel, all of your nervous system dialing down, exactly what they want right out of their journey. It's very tribal. As I said, we'll come onto this in a moment. You can book your own mat, but like everything is together. Obviously their movements are synchronistic. It's yoga, but there's definitely a feeling of togetherness within the club as you walk around, as you have some refreshments before class. As you book your mat, you can book your mat, as I said, specifically next to your friend, next to the people you want to train with. Making that super convenient for those that want to be near the front of the instructor, or even just hanging out near the back in the dark. They have luxury products throughout the club. So they do have spent money on their lux for sure, but their customer service is also excellent. They do have a range of influencers coming to Humming Puppy as well, adding to that feeling of status within their club. They have a decadent lounge where you can sit, have refreshments, have herbal teas before and after class. There's also complimentary cold towels after class, again, adding to that immersion. I can feel the cold towel. I can feel the sensation. I can drink the hot tea. They're really nailing that immersion pillar in nearly every single one of the senses. Next up, Barry's Bootcamp. Completely different, but see how they're also nailing all 5 of the pillars. If you haven't been to Barry's Bootcamp, it's a high intensity workout mix between floor work using usually dumbbells and a bench, and treadmill work on the treadmills that are around the outside of the studio. I've already mentioned it, those names on the shakes at their fuel bar, absolutely tantalizing my taste buds, right, for that taste immersion. And scented towels, again, as you leave the class. It's a really big one for a lot of these boutiques coming through, are these cold scented towels that just feel so great and refreshing after your workout. They have a huge, strong cult-like community. Hashtag Barry's is everywhere. Lots of people are taking selfies. They're actually really making a big deal of making a selfie, and posting it on social media and giving people that status of being a Barry's member. They run things like shirts off Sundays and singles nights. You can kind of see the kind of people this is appealing to. They really have built it, and they really are coming. They're attracting the kind of people that really love that kind of community. It's really to be seen and noticed. That's definitely producing that status on the luxe bucket there. And also beautiful luxury products in the bathrooms. I really want to make a point there as well, that a lot of these studios are also finding that way of aligning with people's values in the way that they're using sustainable products, reusable plastics. They'll have, non-GMO or non-paraben based products in their bathrooms, because that's really aligning with people now. For an example, I know I don't like using paraben type shampoos or conditioners or skin products. So if I go to a studio that has that as their complementary, I'm like, oh, I don't really want to use it, especially if I'm going to be doing it every day. And so knowing that the studio that I go to aligns with that value of mine already has hooked me in and making me want to come back for more. They have state-of-the-art equipment to come back to that luxury piece. They haven't scrimped. So they really have done their work in creating a great community, great luxe, and also great community feel by, like, as I said, the social media and the way that the coaches interact and communicate within the space. Once again, they have a book your own treadmill function. So very similar to our previous example. It's not just about booking your place in class. You can book your specific place in class, which treadmill you want to be on, which bench you want to start on. Is it next to my friend? Is it in the position in the class that I like? Already helps people, want more of that. They also have pack memberships, so pay as you go. So again, giving their members that freedom to be able to go to Barry's twice a week, but then maybe also Humming Puppy twice a week if that's what they wanted. Choreographed lighting. The lighting in Barry's is on point. It's called the Red Room for a reason. It's dark. The lights are red. They have the functionality for it to go very dark. Really using that lighting and powerful playlists curated by the instructors to really use the moments of the drops and the big highs to get people motivated to work even harder. If you want an epic example of using lighting and sound in an Australian boutique, this is the one to go and have a look at. So we're about halfway through this presentation, and I want you just to take a little stop break of what we've learned so far. Hopefully you understand why we are where we're at in our industry and what the needs, wants, and beliefs are of our members. We also understand how we can break that down into 5 pillars of experience so we can actually self-audit our facilities, our classes that we teach, to see how we're delivering, not just on our core product, but our whole member end-to-end journey in terms of experience. All right, moving into the future, not just delivering world-class member experience, but how do we personalize those experiences? Now, bear with me because this is going to feel a little strange, but I'm going to tell you now, to be able to personalize down to the very core of your members, not just through guesswork or a fancy algorithm on an app, we need to understand the unique biology of every single member in your facility. And to do that, We have to look at the study of epigenetics. Now, if you're not sure what that is, that's taking your genes plus the environment to equal your gene expression or your phenotype. Now, the good news, if you want to look more into epigenetics, is that what we once thought was the case, which is that you're born with your genes and therefore any medical predisposition is just yours and there's nothing you can do about it, is wrong. We have control over our health by putting our genes in the correct environment. And what's super exciting is a company that I work with called PH360 understand the correct environment for your individual genes. Very, very cool. Now, I haven't got time to go into all of it today. They run a whole educational platform on this very subject. But what I do want to look at today is what behaviors are determined by our biology. And what that means is that we can look at the unique biology of members to understand what preferences are good for them in terms of what environment we're creating in our classes and in our health clubs. And what that means is that we actually have an effect over our members' health and well-being right the way down to their genes. We have the ability to turn their good genes on and their bad genes off just by creating an ideal environment for them. So to understand this, I'm going to have to take you on a brief science lesson, and we're going to delve straight in, and hopefully I'll make it as fun as and exciting as possible so that you don't fall asleep and completely, zone out from my geeked outness. So we're going to look at the biology of behaviors, because what I'm about to tell you today is that people's behaviors aren't just learnt. Quite often it's down to their biology, and we can predict that by the method I'm going to show you today. So we need to start way, 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 way back when you were a little embryo in your mother's womb, because at around 64 cells, you started to develop through 3 embryological layers: the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. Now, these 3 derm layers are responsible for your development in utero, and they're each responsible for slightly different things in your body. So let's check those out. The ectoderm is responsible for your brain, your spinal cord, your sensory organ development. So when I think of the ectoderm, I like to think of everything sensory, everything thinking and feeling. Make sense? Then you develop also through the mesoderm, and the mesoderm is responsible for your bone, your skeletal muscles, your blood, your heart. So when I think of mesoderm and what develops within that, I think of everything moving, movement. And then we have the endoderm. The endoderm is responsible for the development of the gut tube, the thyroid, the liver, the GI tract, the pancreas, the lungs. Think all your big organs. So have we all got that? Each derm we develop through, and each one is responsible for different organs and different parts of your development. But when we're developing, depending on the genes passed down from your mum and dad, and depending on the environment that mum was in during utero, more energy is put towards some of the derm layers than others. So sometimes lots and lots of energy will get pushed towards the development through your ectoderm, but not as much through the meso and the endoderm. So when we think about this, and we're thinking about more energy put in one of their derm layers than others, do you think that could potentially affect the way that we look and maybe even the way that we behave? The answer is yes. Now, some of your brains might be starting to tick because you're thinking, I've heard of ecto, meso, endo before, and you'd be right. Check it out. You're thinking of our somatotypes, and you wouldn't be wrong. Our ectomorph and our mesomorph and our endomorph are based around embryology, how you developed in utero, and how much energy was put through those certain derm layers. So let's think about someone that had more energy put through the ectoderm than the meso and the endoderm. What might that person look like? I mean, you've got the diagram right there, and you wouldn't be wrong. They're maybe slightly taller, but certainly leaner, a lot less muscle tissue, a lot less fat tissue, because the parts of the development that go into developing the muscle and the fat had less energy, and more was put into things such as the brain, the nervous system, and the sensory organs. So then we might start to think about what they might be like in a behavioral sense. So perhaps if they're having more energy put into the brain function, then maybe they're a little bit more analytical. Maybe they're a little more process driven. If they've had quite a lot of energy put into the nervous system, perhaps they're a little bit more sensitive and aware around through the sensory organs. And you wouldn't be wrong. That's what we look at when we see someone of a pure ectomorph morphology. Let's have a look at somebody different. Pure mesomorph, lots and lots of energy into the mesoderm, less into the endo and the ectoderm. We might start to see someone that's a little bit more muscular in stature. Now, also interestingly, when we look at more energy going into the mesoderm, this is where we have a higher influence of testosterone. Now, when we start to think of testosterone, that might affect us physically, yes, because actually higher levels of testosterone in development mean shorter femur length. So we're going to see shorter people that are more mesomorphic, but also behaviorally. Think of someone that has increased testosterone. Maybe we're thinking of someone that's a little bit more competitive, maybe a little bit more aggressive. So you're already starting to see how these small little things that we can learn about development are influencing not just the way we look, but the way we behave as well. Interestingly, what we once were told around morphology is that we could change our somatotype. That if I was an ectomorph and I ate lots and lots of burgers and I didn't do any exercise and I got really big, that I could become an endomorph. Or if then I decided to go to the gym and pump my muscles and I became a mesomorph. And that's actually not biologically true. Somatotypes are based on embryology and how we developed in utero. So what you're born with in this sense, and in early adolescence, is what you are for the entire of your life, based on your skeletal structures and ratios on your body. Now, because we can measure this by skeletal structure and ratios on the body, it actually means we can take a measuring tape and reverse engineer all the way back to utero. So as a fully grown adult, we can measure your body in certain areas and understand what somatotype you are truly at a biological core. So let's recap. Our embryological layer tells us about things like our hormonal dominance, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that in a moment. It shows us how we grow, so therefore our skeletal structure, our body shape. It also therefore tells us about our physical needs. So what kind of exercise and diet do we need to feed that particular body shape and make it stronger and healthier? But it also shares with us our mental and emotional preferences. It shows us about what we need socially and environmentally to make our unique biology happy and healthy. So in PH 360, after we measure humans, we can understand what their morphology is like and we can place them on a circle. What's important to note is that we categorize into 6 what we call health types, but actually every single person is unique. And when you delve into this, you recognize that every single person's preferences is slightly different. But for the sake of today and looking at club environments and how we can shape and mold the experience our members come through, 6 health types is a really perfect way of breaking it down. And today we're going to go into super detail on 2. So what we look at is we look at the absolute pure ectomorph all the way down at the bottom of the circle, and they're called our sensor. We look at our pure mesomorph, which is our activator, and we look at our pure endomorph, which is our guardian. And then we have blends of the two, where the energy may have been put into the endoderm and the mesoderm, and we get a blend type, which is called our connector. Then we have our ecto blend, which is called our diplomat, and our ecto meso blend, which is called our crusader. So let's dive into a little more detail on 2, especially today. Our meso endo blend, our connector. Now this one is close to my heart because it happens to be the health type I am. Now, I said that every health type has a hormonal dominance or preference, and our connectors is oxytocin, our connection hormone, our love hormone, yeah? Where our connectors want all of the fun with all of the people and to be made to feel extra special. If I was to compare the connector to an animal, it would be the puppy dog. Excited, wanting all the hugs, all the affection, wanting to be made special and have all the tickles on their belly. Now, as I said, it's my particular health type, so I thought I'd pop me in as a little example there. And a typical look and structural appearance of the connector would be generally a little shorter because of that meso influence, square and round face, thicker through the ribs and the trunk. That's a real giveaway for the connector. And if we were to think of a celebrity lookalike or celebrity example rather, we'd look at Mark Wahlberg or Britney Spears. We often see a lot of CrossFit athletes as connectors as well, if that's another way of looking at it. Now, what is the typical behaviors of our connector? They want trust and relationship building over all things. So I want you to think about an ultimate chameleon, because these guys will morph and adapt to be able to create trust and connection with as many people as possible. They're the strongest extrovert out of all 6 health types. And I mean that by the truest definition. So our connectors will gain energy by being around people. Now, I'll give you a really great example of how I played this out in its absolute entirety, because I teach a lot of classes and I always go into a class maybe a little low on energy and come out of a class full of energy. And then over the recent times, over COVID-19, I've had to adapt to doing a lot of online teaching. And it's so different because I walk away, and I said this to my partner, I walk away feeling depleted of energy, unlike my usual classes. And that's because I'm giving to this camera lens, but I'm not receiving the energy of the people back. And that was really, really evident to me then, where I was like, oh gosh, yeah, that's my extroversion. So our truest extrovert are our connectors, and we quite often see lots of group exercise instructors of this health type. Connectors really rate fairness. So they don't want to see anybody being left out. They certainly don't want to be left out, but they also value fairness in any setting. So if there was a competition or some kind of game that was being played, they would have to be fair rules for everyone, a fair distribution of the cake to everybody. You name it, fairness is a really big value of our connectors. And as I said, they love to be made to feel special. So if you can do that in any which way, make them feel like you thought of them, make them feel called out, or, the special one amongst the crowd, your connectors are going to absolutely love you. But they also love to be a part of the team. So they don't want to do that individually. They want to do that as a big group all together. Hence why they're called the connectors, right? They love to bring everybody together in those social circumstances. So when we're designing programming for them, when we're thinking about how to keep them entertained, think fun, exciting. Don't do things that are monotonous or repeated heavily, because they get easily bored. So think about how you can make things new and exciting and fresh for them as much as possible. They're visual processors, so they're going to love colors and lights and pretty things and sparkly things. They're going to notice what you look like, and they love to be told that they look great too, FYI. And they definitely process and think out loud. I'm the person at the desk talking my work out loud, and I am absolutely an example of that. So you might notice them sometimes expressing out loud, having to talk things out, having to talk things through, asking you if they did it right, and it'd be a very big verbal process. They love a chat. Do our connectors. Now I want to compare our connector to the direct opposite on the circle, and that is our sensor. Now our sensor, as I said before, is our pure ectomorph. So remember, we think of small joints, fine skeleton, think ballerina, gymnast, very, very fine, not very much muscle, not very much fat tissue, very linear in structure, not many curves. Yeah, if we're thinking of a celebrity example of our sensor, let's think Victoria Beckham. So as we know, we've already spoke a little bit about the pure ectomorph. They might be a little bit more developed through the brain and central nervous system. So they're the thinkers. They think, then do. Yeah, do as the rule says. Where is the process? They like to think in rules and processes. And if they're not given those things, they're going to feel unsafe. And as we know now, it's a biological safety that they're seeking, because everybody wants to feel safe within their own special way. And these guys need rules, need processes. Now, they actually have an installed biological fear, and that's because they are the smaller skeletal structure. There is a lot more threat to our smaller, skinnier humans. They're not as strong to defend themselves biologically. They're not as, movement based and agile just to like run away. So if we're going to think of an animal for these guys, I want you almost to think like a little bird that's very sensorily aware of their surroundings, because they've got a little bit of that fear within them, so that they can be observing all the time, ready to act if they're in danger. So again, because of all of these reasons, that's why they're quite rule-based, why they need to have structure, so they can plan what's going on and keep themselves in that biological safety. They're very monogamous. So think one thing at a time with these guys, one connection at a time. It's not that they don't like social settings, but they'd much prefer to be in a one-on-one situation than a big, overwhelming group. Very, very dissimilar to our connectors. These guys are our introverts, whereas our connector was our extrovert. These guys will rejuvenate and refresh their energy by being in isolation, in rest. because these guys are quite sensitive. And remember, again, less fat tissue, less muscle tissue. These guys need to be kept warm. So warm environments are going to be really good for them. And as I said, quiet, isolated, monogamous connections is what we want to be thinking about, creating an ideal environment for them. So as a little recap on kind of stuff you can be thinking about when creating, again, programming, design, environment, we want to think that they're very logical, they're analytical, they need recovery and rest and rejuvenation, they need efficiency. So they don't want to be overwhelmed with all the fluff and all of the jazz hands around anything. They want to get to the point. They want the data and they want the specifics. So you wouldn't just be able to say, this is a really super good program. These guys wouldn't want to know the percentage. They'd want to know how good is the program and why. And they'd want the scientific backing on that and the details. They're fiercely independent. So we're not going to want to squash these guys into team activities and sports. We want to let them play out that fiercely independent nature. Now, what's interesting as well about our senses is that they use both left and right brain. And so therefore we have that part of us in our left brain that wants safety and logic, but then also the right brain is very creative. So that's why within senses and those types of morphologies, we'll see quite different kinds of humans. Sometimes the very creative right brain types, like the ballerinas, the gymnasts, the singers, the musicians, but then we might also see our more left brain, logical, analytical people behind the keyboard, data processing. So very two different kind of humans as a whole, but both could be senses. Now, I'd love to go into all 6 types today, but we just don't have time. But I hope you're starting to see that the environments that we need to create for different humans are very, very different in order to keep their biological needs met. Right? So if we were to briefly look at some of our other types, we've got our pure meso, our activator. These guys, as we briefly mentioned when we were looking at development, have a higher influence of testosterone and adrenaline. So these guys are competitive. They're do first, think later. They learn by pain. Again, towards that side of, the mesomorph, the connectors and the activators, think CrossFit as their absolute ideal environment to make their body thrive. Then we have on the opposite side from them, our diplomats. So that's our endo-ecto mix. These guys' dominant hormone or neurotransmitter is serotonin. So they are pleasure seeking. With these guys, just think time and space as their motto. Their sort of inner animal would be the buffalo, slow and steady and hard to move very quickly. We want to give these guys the time and space they need. Then we've got our crusader, our ecto-meso mix. These guys' dominant hormone is dopamine. So they're very purposeful, they're driven. If we're thinking of an animal for these guys, think of a racehorse with blinkers on. We want these people to be on mission because that's where they're happy. They love data because of that ectomorphic influence. So they might be tracking their data on their Garmin watches, going for long endurance runs because that's what their body is built for. And then we've got our guardians. So these are our pure endomorphs, the bigger bodies, thicker through the joints. Remember, as we spoke about in the development section, these guys have got high levels of prolactin. So that's the hormone that you have when you breastfeed as a woman. Well, we all have it, and these guys have an abundance of it. So they are selfless by nature. These are the guys coming for a big chat, wanting to know about you and your family, bringing you the cookies at end of class because they want to look after you. These guys are the nurturers. So that's a real brief snapshot. I know that you're already thinking of tons of members, tons of people in your classes that fit some of these categories. And what's exciting is that there's individual environments that are perfect for all of them. And with this information, we can start to create ideal experiences that are going to turn their good genes on. So just to finish up, to kind of like put the pieces of the puzzle together, and how to answer the question, which you're probably thinking, which is, that's great, Emma, amazing science lesson. My mind is blown. I didn't realize that behaviors were based on our biology, and that we can affect our genes and make our phenotypes healthy and happy just by the environment that we put them in. And oh my God, I'm a club owner or I'm an instructor, and now I have the responsibility to put my members in good environments to make them healthy, optimized humans. You're thinking, great, good, but like, what do I do now? And the answer is it's right at your fingertips. If we can understand our members, we can create these amazing group exercise experiences using the pillars that we went through earlier to create personalized experiences. And that is the future of fitness. So to put, as I said, some of those pieces of the puzzle together, let's look back at our connector, look at our 5 pillars, and think about how we could tick the boxes in those pillars for that particular health type. So let's look at our culture pillar for our connector. So remember, they are energized by connection. So culture for them is community, it's touch. Unfortunately, in this day and age, there can't be so many high fives, but think elbow bumps, fist pumps, as much community interaction as we can is going to keep these guys super happy. They love being in teams. They love to be able to chat it out with their friends in their social environment. So think social events, WhatsApp groups, creating different ways of creating multiple touch points to make them feel a part of your club, a part of your class. Celebrate and notice their wins, because I said they like to be pointed out, they like to be singled out, they like to be made to feel special. Little things you can do is tell them that they look great today, because they're going to absolutely love that compliment. Find out things on their appearance to give them that little personal complimentary touch on. Absolute no-no in culture for these guys. Do not leave them out. Remember, they love fairness, and so therefore don't leave anybody else out either. So if you've got really good cultural things going on, but there's any kind of segregation or elitism, you need to scrap that to keep the connectors happy. Otherwise, they're not going to be happy bunnies. Ease, so convenience for these guys. Remember, they get bored and they give up easily, and they're stressed by isolation. So how can we do the reverse of that in a convenient, easy way? So think nice, quick, easy booking systems for these guys. Less detail, not too many pages to go through. They're going to get bored. They're going to get distracted. So that goes all the way down to, remember, not just the core product itself. So think about your marketing, your sales funnels. How can you make it really quick and convenient for these guys? Otherwise, something new and shiny is going to be off over there, and they're going to go see that instead, and you're going to lose that sale. You're going to lose that customer. Once they're into your ecosystem, things like buddy booking systems is going to be fabulous. So imagine a connector that can also book in their partner or their best friend so that they can come work out with them. They're going to absolutely love that. Don't bog them down, as I said, with too much detail, with too many pages to go through to get to something. Don't make the process long and drawn out with long forms and things that they have to fill out to even get into your health club, get into your class. Don't make it hard for them to connect. Next up, lux. So, social proof. Look good personally and environmentally. So if your place looks good, remember, these people are visual processors. These guys are going to notice if you've had a new lick of paint on the walls, if you've got a beautiful piece of artwork as a mural in your studio. They're going to notice what you look like, and if you're in brand and on brand, these guys are going to be impressed by that. They're going to love merchandise. So these people will absolutely wear your tees, wear your caps, wear your sweatbands, and they will be your biggest advocates. So get good merch, make it look good, and then these guys will be all over it. They don't like pretentiousness though, all right? So they like to be a part of something cool, but again, they don't like that elitism. So make sure that you don't push that across in your luxe feel and look. But again, because they like color, because they like everything looking fabulous, try to not create white, stark, hospital white lighting within your studios, or really dark, dingy environments. Think color, think lighting, think excitement when it comes to the decor. And again, just any way that you create segregation is a big no-no for these guys. Surprise, this is probably the connector pillar. Yeah, absolutely the connector pillar. They love to be made to feel special. So what can you do that's a personal touch that's going to feel like it comes from you directly to them, not through something generic or sent out to everybody? They're going to smell that a mile off. So personal touches, making sure you're actually using their name, remembering their birthday, remembering things about them. And when you do that, again, that it's not generic. It's not just an email that's been copied and pasted. They're going to smell that stuff out. So little personalized gifts, little moments in their locker, little love notes in their, in their inside their locker, or when you hand over something to them at reception. There's so many ways you can think of doing special touches, and these guys, they're going to be all over it. Remember, don't forget about them and don't forget about other people. I can't stress this enough. I've seen too many times in my consultancy services, people wanting to do surprise. So they have all the good intentions of like remembering birthdays or calling out people on something like a birthday or anniversary and doing something special for them in class, but not doing it consistently and not doing it for every member that gets to that point, like not remembering everybody's birthday, not remembering everybody's 100th visit. And therefore, people feel left out. People feel like they've been discriminated against or forgotten. And if you did that to a connector, or they see you do that to somebody else, you're going to lose trust with them very, very quickly. Immersion. So because they're visual processors, the immersion sense of sight is going to be huge for them. But overall, we want to keep it fun. We want to keep it exciting. We want to keep their attention. So change up the environment if you can. Have different lighting sets, have different scents or scented candles coming through the place. They're going to absolutely love that. Create dynamic, energetic atmospheres. If you can include new products or a new piece of equipment every now and again, that's going to keep things fresh for these guys. Avoid at all costs monotony, predictability, things like the same music going on over and over again, the same format going on over and over again. This is going to make them bored. It's going to make them leave you really, really quick. So that's our connector. If we were to think back just a little while ago to a particular club that I described when we looked through our pillars and who was nailing it, can you think of a health club that seems like connect to heaven? Yes? Barry's. Barry's is an absolute connector haven. If we think back to Barry's pillars and why they were nailing it, and then we just look at the connector's ideal environment, they're like a direct match. Now, Barry's did that by accident. They built it and they came, just like we said at the beginning. But imagine you could do that in your health club and do it on purpose. Imagine the people you could pull in and create the ideal environment for. Let's do it with one more. Let's do it with our sensor. So our sensor's ideal environment for culture. So remember, almost the opposite of our connectors, right? They're socially selective. They prefer isolation. They want familiar people, not loads of new people being churned through, because they want deeper meaning and purpose with their interactions. So these guys are going to prefer smaller groups. They're going to prefer a lot more why and science behind things when it comes to your culture. So things like seminars or learning events that are like in addition to their membership or included will be perfect for these guys, because they get to learn more. They get to understand more about your programming. Purposeful meetups would be great. Things with like small groups, maybe like just tea with select people in an environment that's warm and safe. It's going to feel really great for them. Don't force interaction. Don't force the high fives and the hugs and the fist pumps and the woos on these guys. They're not going to love it. That's going to feel like fickle interaction to them. So they're not going to enjoy that over top rebellious energy. They're going to prefer things with a lot more process, that's steady and calm and that follows rules. Ease for these guys is anything that feels organized and efficient and logical. That's going to make their biology just go, this feels good. They like to compartmentalize everything. There should be details. They want to checklist things off their list to say, that's what I've done. That's what you needed me to do. I've done it. So there is safety and predictability with these guys. So different from our connectors, right? That want the spontaneity and the variety. So stuff that's easy to follow, efficient, is going to win these guys over. So efficient processes, providing autonomy, providing purposeful contact, providing detail. And if you can reduce decision-making for these guys and just give them a clear-cut process, then they're going to follow it and they're going to be yours forever. Don't micromanage these guys. Don't provide too many products or options or vague processes or fluff. Just get to the point, and that's going to be ease for them. Lux for these guys is anything where you can provide evidence. So what's going to feel luxe to them and luxurious and 5-star is the fact that you can back your stuff up. So have you got the expertise? Have you got the credentials? Have you got the best PTs in the business, and can you prove it? And they're going to like that a lot, because then that way they can understand your deeper why of your facility and connect with it. So exclusivity for these guys, good high-end reputation, high-end offerings are going to mean a lot and go a long way, and they will pay for it. If you can say, this is what we provide, this is why, this is the science, this is the data, then they'll be willing to pay above and beyond for that because it's feeding their needs. Don't overwhelm them with over-the-top lovey-dovey service. Don't invade their personal space. Enable them to have that, as we said, wild independence at the same time as enjoying your facility. Surprise. So as you can imagine, if it's the connector's favorite pillar, might not be our sensor's favorite pillar. The way we can surprise these guys is sort of surprise, but in a methodical fashion that maybe feels a bit predictable. So they're going to have high expectations. The way that we can surprise these guys is to go above those expectations in a way that they love. So if you can provide that extra science, that free seminar that provides them with extra detail that's included in their membership and they didn't realize, that would be a surprise for them that feels good. Make sure you deliver on your promises and do things as they should be, because they're going to notice your slip ups. So meet those expectations, over deliver in a familiar way so that they're pleasantly surprised. Do not make them the center of attention and create these unpredictable shock surprises that are just going to make them feel super uncomfortable. They're not going to love you for it. And finally, immersion. So again, big biological fear, right? So we want to reduce that by creating neurological ease and rest. So think soft lighting, really beautiful music that's going to dial down their senses, warm temperatures that are going to make them feel safe and cozy. No big nightclub atmospheres, not too much sensory overwhelm. So big loud noises, lots of people, nightclub atmosphere, that's not going to make these people feel biologically safe. So when we think about the sensor, are you seeing what I did now? And an ideal tick all of the boxes and the pillars for the sensor environment, what are we thinking? From a club that I may have mentioned earlier. That's right. Humming Puppy is sensor haven. Think back to the things that they provided within their pillars of excellence. That beautiful tea room where they've got top quality teas in environments where they could sit down one-on-one with their really close friend and enjoy a deep conversation before or after yoga. Maybe something philosophical and beautiful through something they learned in class today, and they can sit down with their friend and discuss that. You know, that beautiful atmosphere that's going to dial down their senses because it's soft lighting and it's dark, and that booking system where they can choose where to be and be in that dark corner and alone and enjoy that introversion time. Humming Puppy, perfect environment for our sensor. So I'm hoping your brain is ticking and you're thinking, how can I create an ideal environment for a diplomat, or an ideal environment for an activator? Or how could I look at a group of health types and create an ideal atmosphere for them? And it is possible. And if you're interested in learning more, I do hope you'll come and get in contact with me. As I said, my website is right there, Experience Age Consultancy, where I delve deep into the pillars of experience and how we can provide that for your facility, for your class, and for the way that you deliver in any which way member end-to-end journeys, where we're going to not just look at a core product anymore, but we're going to look at this full journey of amazing, mind-blowing experience. If you want to learn more about PH360, I highly urge that you do. That was a tiny tip of a very big iceberg of what that system can do. The education is phenomenal. Understanding people's needs and wants at a biological level changes the game. It's a lens you cannot take off. So dive deep into ph360.me. The Instagram is right there too, as well as mine. And please reach out personally to me if you've got any questions about any of the stuff and more that I discussed today. I'll be more than happy to help you out. That's all I got time for today. I hope it was useful. Please give me some feedback or any questions right there as well. I'd love to hear it. But for now, I will see you soon. Bye-bye. Into is actually one of our mixes, our endo meso